What happens when the man who owns the factory ends up sewing next to the woman who's been overlooked for years? Bradley Stokes used to know every inch of his business. He bought the uniform manufacturing company 8 years ago from a retiring owner who built it from scratch. Back then, there were just 4 locations. Now, they had 7 production floors and 2 distribution hubs. But as it grew, Bradley found himself stuck in a loop of conference calls, spreadsheets, and surface-level reports from district managers who always said the same thing: everything's fine. Lately, though, things hadn't felt fine. Customer complaints were growing. Missed shipment deadlines. A few quality control issues. But it was the tone of a recent voicemail from a long-time client that pushed him over the edge. "Brad, I've trusted your company for years. But if I'm going to be getting crooked seams and loose buttons, I'll take my business elsewhere." Bradley didn't call back. He just sat at his desk, staring at the speaker. He realized he hadn't stepped foot in a factory in over 2 years. He needed to see it for himself. He called in a favor from a friend in wardrobe design in the film industry. The disguise was subtle but smart, dyed gray in his dark brown hair, shaved the beard into a goatee, glasses, and a fake name, Ben. He even got a slight southern accent coached into him. None of the current staff had ever met him in person. He'd always worked through the district managers and store managers. It was a corporate chain now, and he was just a face on the company website if they even bothered to look. He picked the 3rd factory out of the 9. It was in a mid-sized town in Indiana. The numbers on that location had been slipping, but not enough for anyone to raise alarms. The moment he stepped inside, he felt the difference. It wasn't dirty, but it felt tired. The hum of sewing machines filled the air, but no one smiled. A woman at the front desk handed him a visitor badge, barely looking up. "You're the new trainee, right?"
Ben.
"Yeah," Bradley said, adjusting his glasses. "That's me." "All right," she sighed. "Manager's out sick today. So just follow Clara. She's the floor supervisor." Clara was in her mid-40s, short blonde hair, clipboard under her arm. She barely slowed her stride as she pointed at machines. "You ever sewed before?" she asked, not looking at him. "Not really," he said. "Then stay out of the way. Watch, don't touch." "Got it." He nodded. She walked him to the far end of the room. "You'll follow Carla. She's fast and she doesn't talk much." Carla was already threading a machine when they approached. Early 30s, quiet face, hands moving like they'd memorized every stitch. "She's one of the best we've got," Clara said. "Don't slow her down." Bradley sat beside her, trying not to look awkward.
"Hey, I Ben."
She gave him a side glance and a polite nod. For the next 3 hours, Bradley watched Carla turn fabric into finished uniform tops like it was second nature. She barely looked down. Her foot tapped the pedal in perfect rhythm. He tried to help passing her thread, fetching scissors, but she didn't ask for anything. At lunch, they sat on metal stools in the break room. "You don't talk much," Bradley said, opening the sandwich he brought. "I get more done that way," Carla replied, sipping from a water bottle. Bradley smiled. "Fair." They sat in silence for a bit. Then she asked, "You taking this job long-term?" He shrugged. "Not sure yet." She nodded. "If you're lucky, you'll get transferred. This factory's dead end." Bradley raised an eyebrow. "How come?" She looked around, leaned in a little. "You work your tail off here and no one notices. Been here 7 years. Never once got a raise unless I asked. Promotions? Only if you're friends with Clara or go drinking with the guys upstairs." Bradley frowned. "But you're the fastest sewer on the floor."
Carla chuckled. Bitter.
Exactly. Later that afternoon, Clara barked at Carla in front of everyone. "You call that straight stitching? You been here long enough to know better." Bradley looked at the piece. The seam looked perfectly fine to him. Carla didn't argue. She just fixed it and kept going. After work, Bradley sat in his motel room, replaying the day. He felt shaken. The girl who clearly held the floor together was being treated like she was disposable. And Clara? She was running the place like a relic from 2 decades ago, managing through fear and favoritism. He pulled out his phone, stared at the contact list. His assistant had offered to set up a call with the district manager before he went undercover.
He'd refused.
Now he was glad he did. The next day, Bradley asked Carla to show him how to sew. She raised an eyebrow but finally agreed.
Fine.
But if you break a needle, you buy me coffee.
Deal.
They worked side by side. She was patient but firm. She corrected his grip, tightened his corners, and even gave a rare smile when he finally finished a clean seam.
You're not bad, she said.
He smiled. You're a good teacher. She shrugged. You're the first person who's ever asked. Bradley's stomach turned. By the end of the week, he'd seen enough. Machines broke down and weren't fixed for days. Overtime went unpaid unless someone complained. And Clara? She seemed more interested in micromanaging than helping. On Friday, just before the shift ended, Bradley saw her pull Carla aside again. I've got Casey training the new hires next week. You just keep sewing.
Carla blinked.
I thought you said I'd get the next training spot. Yeah, well, Casey's a better fit. Don't take it personal. Carla didn't argue. She just nodded and went back to her station, jaw tight. Bradley stood there, fists clenched. He wasn't sure if it was anger or shame. He'd built this company to stand for something better than this. Hard work was supposed to mean something. And now he was done watching. It was time to reveal who he really was. Bradley arrived earlier than usual the next morning, the factory still dim with only a few overhead lights flicked on. The air was cooler, quieter. No buzz of machines yet, just the faint rattle of carts being pushed in from the loading dock. He wanted to see what happened before the shift officially began. Through the glass pane in the break room, he spotted Carla already at her station, threading her machine with a deliberate calm. She wasn't scheduled for another 40 minutes. She must have come in early to make up for something, though there hadn't been any delay in her output the day before. Morning, Bradley said as he approached. She didn't look up right away. Didn't expect you here this early. Figured I'd try starting the day right for once. Carla let the corner of her mouth twitch, but her eyes stayed focused on the needle. You'll learn that, right? Doesn't mean much around here. Bradley leaned against the table beside her. What do you mean? Carla straightened, wiped her hands on her jeans. Clara changes priorities midweek, sometimes midday. We prep for one order, then she tells us to switch tracks because something got bumped up or someone up top demanded it. No warning. No changes to our hours. We just have to keep up. Bradley nodded slowly. And if you don't, Carla gave him a look like she couldn't believe he had to ask. Then it's on us. Doesn't matter who changed what. You fall behind, it's your fault. Even if you're doing 3 people's work. Bradley watched her adjust the tension dial on the machine. How sure are you on people? We're down 2 full-timers, she said, voice flat. 1 left last month. Said she couldn't take the pace. The other had wrist surgery, and Clara never brought in a temp. Why not? Clara says temps mess up the flow. We're better off sticking with people who already know the process. Her words. Bradley didn't respond. He couldn't. The logic was hollow, and he knew it. Instead, he watched Carla pull a box of fabric pieces toward her and begin laying them out in piles. Her movements were systematic, nothing wasted, no hesitation. As the rest of the floor filled in and machines kicked to life, Bradley drifted between stations. He noticed details now with a sharper eye, frayed cords taped instead of replaced, bins of scrap fabric overflowing near the back wall, and one woman working at a machine with a cracked foot pedal that kept sliding on the floor. She kept adjusting it with her heel, barely slowing down. Before lunch, Clara returned. She walked briskly, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning like she was waiting to catch someone idle. She didn't acknowledge Bradley beyond a glance and a vague nod. She stopped at the station near the back where a man in his 50s was packing finished garments into boxes. "Albert," she said, tapping the clipboard, "you're 2 cartons behind." "Machine jammed twice this morning," he replied without looking up. "I logged it and kept going." Clara scribbled something, then turned to walk off. No follow-up, no offer to help. Bradley kept his distance but watched her move from person to person, checking output but never asking a single question. By midday, Bradley had returned to Carla's station. She was finishing a collar, her eyes narrowed in concentration. He leaned in slightly. "Does Clara ever step in when someone's behind?" Carla didn't pause. "Only to write it down." "What about maintenance? Who do you call when something breaks?" Carla's hands froze for a moment, then resumed. "There's a guy, Leo. He's supposed to cover all 3 departments. But half the time Clara tells him not to bother unless it's a full shutdown." "Why?" "She says calling in repairs for minor issues makes us dependent." Bradley blinked. "So, if your machine's acting up, you fix it yourself. Or work around it." That afternoon, a heavier order came in triple the usual units, needing to be boxed and shipped by next evening. Clara announced it before the break bell, her voice cutting through the room. "We've got a priority batch coming in. Starting now, we're switching production lines. That means overtime for anyone staying past 5. Sign-up sheets in the office." No one said anything. Just quiet nods and people adjusting their stations. Bradley noticed Carla roll her shoulders, then lean over to start clearing her table. He followed her. "You staying?" "Have to. There's no one else to finish it." "Do you get any choice?" Carla looked at him, the fatigue just starting to show. "We get the formality of a choice." Bradley stepped back, watching the floor shift gears. The pace picked up. Voices got quieter. Focus deepened. By 6, the air was heavy with lint and tension. Carla's hands had slowed slightly, and she flexed her fingers between seams. Bradley tried to keep up with her, but his stitches were uneven and crooked. Carla didn't say anything, just quietly redid the 2 shirts he'd finished incorrectly. He tried to apologize, but she waved it off. "Just move the finished ones. I'll handle the rest." Bradley did as told, carrying boxes to the packing table where Albert was still working. The man gave him a tired glance. "You're new, huh?" "Something like that." Albert gestured at the pile. "These'll be double-checked anyway. But don't let Clara catch a crooked seam. You'll get written up your first week." "You ever tell her the workload's too much?" Albert gave a short laugh. "She doesn't hear that. She hears excuses." Bradley paused. "How long you been here?" "Since the place opened. Back when we had 2 shifts and a real break room with working vending machines." Bradley looked around. Half the chairs in the break room were cracked or missing. The soda machine had an out-of-order sign taped to it. "You ever think about quitting?" Albert shrugged. "Too close to retirement. I just keep my head down and grind it out." By 8 that night, the floor was still half full. Carla was still sewing, her pace steady but slower. A faint tremble had started in her left hand. She tried to hide it, but when she reached for the scissors and knocked them off the table, Bradley noticed. "You all right?" She nodded, jaw tight. "Just need to finish this row." He bent down, picked up the scissors. "When's the last time you took a day off?" She didn't answer. Just press the pedal again. Bradley stayed until the line finally shut down around 9. He walked out with Carla, both of them silent as they crossed the parking lot. Her car was older chipped paint, one hubcap missing. She unlocked it, then paused before getting in. "You're not like the others they bring in." He raised an eyebrow. "You listen," she said. "Most new hires just keep their heads down and try not to get noticed. You ask questions." "Is that bad?" She shook her head slowly. "Just unusual." Bradley nodded. "You ever think about running this place?" Carla gave a dry laugh. "Me?
No.
That's not how it works. What if it could? She looked at him, puzzled. Then a lot more people would still be here. Bradley held her gaze for a moment longer, then stepped back as she got into the car. Driving back to the motel, Bradley didn't turn the radio on. His hands stayed clenched around the wheel, his mind racing not just with frustration, but with something deeper. Responsibility. Not the kind that came in spreadsheets or quarterly reports. The kind that had faces, and names, and hands worn down from doing too much for too long. Bradley had seen enough. Tomorrow, he wasn't coming in as Ben anymore. He was coming in as himself. Bradley arrived before sunrise, this time in a pressed navy button-up and clean slacks, no glasses, no gray dye. His real clothes, his real face. The air felt heavier than it had all week, and not because of the weather. He parked at the far end of the lot, away from the employee rows, and walked straight to the front entrance. The receptionist barely had time to look up before he spoke. "My name is Bradley Stokes. I own this company. I need to speak with everyone on the production floor."
Now.
She froze mid-motion, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. Then she stood and nodded without a word, picking up the phone. As he waited, he watched the morning shift clock in one by one. Some gave him quick glances, confused by the unfamiliar face in formal clothes. Then Clara walked in through the side door, talking into her phone, clipboard under her arm. She spotted him, slowed, and lowered the phone. "Can I help you?" Bradley turned toward her without hesitation.
Yes.
"I'm the reason your floor is going to stop for the next hour. Get everyone together." She blinked, paused, then started to speak. But he cut her off.
Now.
She hesitated for a moment longer, then gave a short nod and turned toward the floor. 15 minutes later, every employee stood near their stations, murmuring quietly. Machines were off. The usual tension in the room had shifted to confusion and curiosity. Carla stood toward the back, arms folded, eyes fixed on him but unreadable. Bradley stepped forward, his voice steady. "Some of you know me as Ben. That's not my name. My name is Bradley Stokes. I'm the founder and CEO of this company." The room fell completely silent. A few heads turned. Someone whispered something to their neighbor, but no one said anything aloud. "I went undercover here because I stopped trusting what I was hearing in reports. I wanted to see the truth for myself. And I did." He glanced across the room, then locked eyes with Carla for a brief moment before continuing. "I saw people working through fatigue, covering for broken equipment, and staying late without complaint. I saw leaders who don't listen, and policies that punish initiative instead of rewarding it." He turned his attention toward Clara. Her face was rigid, her expression somewhere between disbelief and calculation. "I watched a supervisor discourage feedback, deny opportunity, and treat dedicated employees like they were interchangeable." Clara opened her mouth, but Bradley raised a hand.
No.
"You'll speak when I'm done." She closed her mouth slowly, jaw tightening. He turned back to the workers. "This factory is being run in a way that contradicts everything I built this company to represent. Some of you here have been doing the work of multiple people, without support, without recognition, and without fair treatment." He stepped forward, eyes sweeping the floor. "That ends today." He paused, then nodded toward Clara. Effective immediately, Clara is no longer the floor supervisor. A wave of stunned silence spread through the room. Clara stepped forward again, voice sharp. "You can't be serious. You've seen how hard this floor is to run. You think someone else can just walk in and—" Bradley didn't raise his voice, but the calmness cut deeper. "I don't think. I know. Because I've already seen someone who does." He turned toward the back.
Carla.
She blinked once, completely still. "I watched you train a new guy without being asked. I watched you correct mistakes without blame. I saw you come in early, stay late, and carry the weight of this floor without complaint or credit. You don't just do the work, you understand it. You care. She didn't respond, her face unreadable. I want you to step into the supervisor role, starting on a provisional basis. Effective immediately. The room shifted again, this time with quiet surprise. A few people glanced at Carla. Others looked at each other, unsure of what to make of it. Carla finally stepped forward, cautious but direct. Why me? Because I've spent the last 5 days watching how this place actually runs. And without you, it doesn't. What happens if I say no? Then I'll still fix what's broken here. But I'll be doing it without the one person I know I can trust. She looked at the floor for a long moment, then back at him. I'll do it, but not if it's just a title. I'm not running this place the way it's been run. You won't have to. He turned back to the others. There will be no more unpaid overtime. Equipment issues will be logged and fixed within 48 hours, non-negotiable. Anyone working more than 45 hours in a week will be offered adjusted shifts the next. We're starting a rotation for breaks. I don't care if it slows output by 5%, we'll make it back in quality and retention. Bradley continued, voice steady. I'll be meeting with each of you in the coming week. One-on-one. I want to hear what's not working. And I want real answers, not filtered ones. Someone from the back, Albert, the packer, raised a hand. You doing this at the other locations?
I will be, Bradley said.
Albert nodded once, then returned his hand to his side. Bradley looked around. I'll stay out of your way for now, but I'll be back. Often. And not as a mystery trainee, as myself. He stepped aside, giving Carla the floor. She stepped forward slowly, hands still at her sides, her voice quieter than his but no less certain. I'm not going to pretend I know everything about running this floor, but I do know what it feels like to be overlooked. That ends now. If you've got a problem, you come to me. If I can't fix it, I'll tell you why. If I can, I will. She looked at the seamstress beside her, then the press operator near the front. We've all been working like we're replaceable. That changes today. Bradley gave her a small nod, then turned and walked toward the exit. Clara remained near the door, still holding her clipboard. As he passed, she spoke under her breath. You're making a mistake. Bradley stopped. He didn't look at her, just kept his gaze forward.
No.
The mistake was letting this go on for so long. He walked out. That afternoon, he returned to the motel and opened his laptop not to check emails, but to draft a message to the regional leadership team. It wasn't a request. It was a directive. Every floor under his company's name would be audited in person within the month. Not by consultants. By him. By 5 o'clock, Carla had already reorganized the floor schedule, rotating breaks evenly and pulling 2 employees off overtime prep so they could catch up on maintenance logs. She hadn't asked permission. She didn't need to. By 6, she had moved Albert to a packing role that required less heavy lifting, pairing him with a younger assistant who had been underused at the press station. She told Bradley later she'd noticed the way he shifted his weight during long shifts, something Clara never had. And by 7, for the first time in weeks, the factory's floor lights switched off with everyone leaving together. No one stayed late. No one was told to push through. They just left tired, but not defeated. Bradley didn't go back to the motel right away. He sat in his car, staring at the building as the last few cars drove off. The company he thought he knew had changed behind his back. Now it was his turn to change with it. 3 weeks after the reveal, Bradley returned to the Indiana factory, this time through the front doors, without disguise, without pretense. The warehouse air still carried the same dry scent of pressed fabric and oil from machines, but the atmosphere felt different now. Not lighter, exactly, but alert, aware. He didn't announce himself. He didn't need to. People noticed him on their own, nodding briefly, then returning to their work. No one rushed to impress him. That mattered more than he expected. Carla was in the small office off the main floor, not behind the desk, but beside it, leaning on a short filing cabinet with a stack of shift logs in her hands. She wore a navy apron, same as before, but her posture had changed. Her shoulders weren't drawn in. She stood square, grounded. Bradley stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "I didn't expect you until next week," she said, flipping the top paper over. "I moved things around," he said. "Figured I'd see how things were holding up." She placed the files down and crossed her arms, not guarded, just focused. "It's not perfect," she said, "but it's moving." "How's the transition been?" Honest answer. She nodded once before answering. "Long days. A lot of rewiring. Not machines, people. They're used to silence. I'm trying to change that without pushing too hard." He gestured to the files. "Anything in there I should see?" She handed him a short list from a yellow legal pad. "These are the people who've stepped up. Not just in speed initiative. Giving ideas. Volunteering to cross-train. I've been rotating them into mentoring roles. It's informal for now, but it's working." He read the names. Some he vaguely recognized, most he didn't. "What about the equipment backlogs?" "Still behind," she said. "But Leo's coming in twice a week now. I convinced the regional maintenance lead to reroute his shift schedule. We're triaging." Bradley placed the paper back down. "You've done more in 3 weeks than I've managed in 3 years." Carla gave a short breath through her nose. "You gave me the space. That's more than most people ever have." He leaned against the edge of the desk. "Do you even want to keep this role long-term?" She didn't hesitate.
Ida.
"But only if we keep moving. If this becomes another figurehead thing, I'm out." "It won't," he said. "I won't let it." She nodded, then picked up another file. "We need to talk about the second shift." Bradley raised an eyebrow. "You planning to bring it back?" "I'm not."
They are.
She walked over to a whiteboard leaning against the far wall. Names were written in blue marker, grouped in twos. She pointed to the right column. "They've been asking to split the hours. Some have kids, some have second jobs. They want a rotation that cuts the late shift into smaller blocks. Not a full second shift, just an alternate track." Bradley looked it over. "Won't that slow output?" "A little, but we'll retain people. And we'll cut burnout in half." He studied the board in silence for a few seconds. "Draft the rotation. I'll approve it by end of the week."
Carla nodded.
"I'll have it on your desk by Thursday." He turned toward the office window and looked out across the floor. The machines moved steadily, not rushed, not sluggish. There were fewer people here today, but the rhythm held. A man in his early 20s was adjusting a thread guide for a coworker without being asked. Near the back, someone taped a new safety notice to the wall. Bradley stepped out of the office and walked the length of the floor. Albert was at the new packing station, seated on a stool with back support, working next to a younger man folding garments with practiced speed. They were talking quietly, pointing at the checklist taped to the table. Bradley waited until they paused, then approached. "How's the new setup treating you?" Albert looked up, eyes calm. "Better. You can tell Carla the stool helps. I'm not shifting weight every 10 minutes anymore." "I'll let her know," Bradley said. "And the new guy, he learning the ropes?" Albert gave a short nod. "He's sharp. Picks up faster than I did at his age." The younger man smiled, then returned to folding. Bradley continued on. He stopped by the supply station, where a woman was scanning barcodes into a handheld device. "You're tracking inventory manually?" "Temporarily," she said. "We're testing a new system this week." He raised an eyebrow. She clarified. "Carla's idea. Said if we log what we use in real time, we'll finally have accurate reorder points. No more guessing. I'm building the template." He nodded. "Let me know what you need to scale it." She gave a thumbs up and turned back to the scanner. Bradley returned to the office one more time before leaving. Carla was now seated, typing something into a spreadsheet. "I saw the barcode system." She didn't look up. "It's still ugly, but it's functional." He leaned against the doorway. You've built something here, Carla. Not just a better floor. A better culture. She paused, fingers hovering over the keys. I didn't build it. They were always capable. They just didn't have a channel for it. He stepped inside, sat across from her. I've been doing this wrong, he said. I thought scaling meant standardizing. But I forgot how much the soul of a place comes from the floor itself. She looked at him, eyes clear. Then build around that. Don't flatten it. He nodded. I'm restructuring the district roles. Starting next month, every location will have an internal development lead, someone who came up from the floor. Not outside hires. People who've lived the work. She leaned back slightly. That's going to rattle some egos.
Good, he said.
They could use it. She gave a dry chuckle. So what happens now? You stay here.
Keep building.
I'll give you the tools. Not rules tools. She sat forward again, elbows on the desk. Then I'll keep pushing. But I'm not interested in being a mascot. You won't be, he said. You'll be the model. He stood, offered his hand. She took it firm, no hesitation. This place is still rough, she said. I know, he replied. But it's alive again. As he left the factory, Bradley glanced back at the building. The parking lot was mostly full. Not because people were stuck late, but because they had somewhere to be together. A training session had just started in the back annex, led by one of the new mentors Carla had chosen. Voluntary. Half the team stayed. He got into his car, pulled out a small notebook, and wrote one line across the top of a fresh page. Listen first. Then build. The road ahead wasn't clean or easy, but it was finally headed somewhere worth going.